Hey guys, I'm just gonna do a video now on some top tier 5 tower picks, basically. These are, pretty well-known great towers, and ones that I personally use all the time. These are, there's a lot of other good tier 5 towers. I think every single tower in the game has, like, something great in it. And most of the time, that's the tier 5 tower. Or one of the tier 5 upgrades, or like a couple of them. But there's some honorable ones which I wanted to bring up here, because these ones are basically the most sort of cost-effective ones that you can actually reasonably use. Like, for example, the temple is obviously an amazing tower. It's like the best tower in the game, but you're never really gonna use it in chimps. I have only put it down once in chimps myself. I didn't even get the true sun god, but I did do it. But yeah, anyway, so let's get started on this. Okay, so we'll go through from the beginning, of course, and the first one that I'll mention will be the tack shooter. So this is the 205 tack shooter. This is the best variation. If you want to go for this tower, you want the 205. There's reasons to use either, but this is the one you want. So the tack zone, it basically just fires a lot of tacks, like a ridiculous number of tacks. This massive number of projectiles pairs amazingly with an Alchemist. And that just makes this tower amazing for doing anything. Like, it can deal with mobs great, it can deal with like children of mobs great, it can deal with everything. And not only that, it is a very cheap tower. So this is a great pick. I actually don't use this one too often though, because there are some other great ones that I like to use, and the next one is the main reason why. This is the Icicle Impale. So the 015 Icicle Impale. You can get 025, and I usually do get 025, but it doesn't matter too much by the time you get it. Mainly because Deep Freeze doesn't work on Mob class balloons. It does work on ceramics, but by the time you get this down, you're usually like roughly getting into the 81 plus range, which has super ceramics, which have like more than 60 health. So yeah, so you're not really worrying about an extra layer so much. But anyway, this tower is amazing, because not only can it actually stun Moab class balloons, including DDTs, it literally just holds them still right in the spot. It slows them massively, and then, they're just stuck on the spot and they just get obliterated. But yeah, it actually does huge damage to them as well. So it just it just annihilates them. It's an amazing tool. The main use for it, everything, but the main use for it that I prefer is just catching DDTs. DDTs are spooky because they'll just fly right past you. But if you got one of these, they will fly up to it and then stop. And then they will just explode and be gone, and you don't have to worry about them anymore. And yeah, so that is why this tower is an amazing asset. Another one worth mentioning for the Ice Monkey is the Super Brittle, and that's got debatable cross buff, which I explained in my cross path tips video. But this one, it doesn't do much on its own. It doesn't really do anything on its own. But what it does do, however, is it applies a debuff to the balloons that it freezes, and at tier 5 this works on Mob class balloons, and that debuff means that anything else, any other towers you have that hit that Mob class balloon for a brief period after it's hit by this tower will deal 4 extra damage. And this obviously is similar to the Alchemist. This will pair really well with towers that attack fast or do a lot of projectiles. So, and it's also pretty cheap. It doesn't do much on its own is the problem. So even though it's pretty cheap, it's not worth going for unless you already have something which, like, placed and upgraded already that synergizes well with it. And for example, the tack zone. So if you already have a tack zone placed, then you can put one of these next to it and it will make your tack zone 5 times as powerful. And for the price you're spending, that's pretty good. It's definitely really good. The problem is just the requirement of needing to have another tower that's good before you can use it. And so for that reason alone, I don't use this too often. So those are the only 2 towers that 3 upgrades that I would really recommend from the primary tree in terms of Chimps difficulty. But I will give an honourable mention here to the Crossbow Master, the 0 to 5 Crossbow Master. You will never use any other Crossbow Master unless you're just joking or making a meme, because there's no reason to give it Pierce. Yeah, there's no reason. But the reason that this falls short is because even though it does amazing damage, similar to the Icicle Impale, it can't stun anything unlike the Icicle Impale. But for a very similar price, like it's almost as expensive as the Icicle Impale, you may as well just save up for an Icicle Impale. and honestly, the gap that you're waiting to save up, I find that the tier 4 icicles on the Ice Monkey that you get while saving up for the Icicle Impale actually helps me out a lot more than just having one of these around. Those icicles are not to be underestimated, I will say. I think they often are, but they are definitely not to be underestimated. So if you're on an easier map, then go for the Crossbow Master. Sure, it'll do fine. It can take out DDTs. It just can't keep up with them well. But on a harder map, definitely don't go for this. And I guess last mentions, the Mob Dominator for the Boomerang is great, but far too expensive to use in Chimps. The Balloon Crush for the Bomb Shooter, same, just far too expensive to use in Chimps because it stuns amazingly, but it doesn't damage. And similar for the Glue Gunner, it also has an amazing stun, but unlike the Icicle Impale, it just doesn't do enough damage. So we'll move on to the military now. So the Sniper Monkeys. Okay, so the Cripple Moab is similar to the Embrittlement on the Ice Monkey. Unfortunately, it is much more expensive than that, and it only hits one target at a time. For that reason, it's not practical to use in Chimps difficulty. Great tower, but otherwise no. Sniper Monkey in general, you won't be using in Chimps. Just saying that now. Great tower, but won't really be used in Chimps. Early on, 1 or 2 can help. Single target thing really kills it. Monkey Sub is actually a great one though. So, Preemptive Strike. This one is super expensive, so I'm hesitant to mention this, but I have used this tower and passed Chimps with it, and the first strike capability is amazing for dealing with the bad balloon. So this one will eliminate all DDTs as a threat, and then this ability will eliminate round 100 as a threat. So for that reason alone, this is a great tower to use in Chimps if you can afford it. And that's what really kills it here. It is a super expensive upgrade. $40,000 for the tier 5, $13,000 for the tier 4. These upgrades aren't so much, but these together, $53,000. For what it does, it's very cost effective, but the process of saving up for it will kill you in harder maps. So definitely a great one, but yeah, that's going to kill it. The sub commander here, if you're on a water map where you can fit a lot of subs, this is great. I would definitely recommend just spamming subs into this. It got a buff recently, which was awesome. So now it just makes your airburst darts insane. So it's definitely worth using if you're on a water map, but that's the problem. You're not often going to have a map with a great deal of water where you can really spam the subs. And this $25,000 upgrade, while that's not too expensive, it doesn't do anything to itself at all. It only buffs the subs in its radius, so you're only going to get much benefit out of this if you're on a map with lots of room to spam subs under it. Okay, the Buccaneer. So the Carrier Flagship is actually really good. This is how I managed to beat Chimps on Ouch for the first time, thanks to Darklink's help. He made the first guide, and it was amazing help. And yeah, so this one, it's a bit of an expensive save, but 25,000, it's actually much cheaper than a lot of other options. Even the Icicle Impale is 32,000 in Chimps mode, and I think in Chimps this is 27,000 or something. I actually haven't used it recently, so I kind of forgot. But it gains instant lead detection once you get to the tier 5, so you can just make a 502, and it also buffs the attack rate of your other ships in radius, so you can put destroyers around it, or potentially some some other subs and a sub commander and have that trio going on. That'd be cool. So it's definitely a great cost-effective upgrade, and I would recommend this one. But as far as the Buccaneer goes, I wouldn't get any of these other upgrades, especially not the cash generator, because that's just terrible. But the Crow's Nest is worthwhile to add to this for camo detection, because if you have the camo detection, this tier 5 comes with lead popping, so it can handle DDTs. It will need help on shorter maps though, because it is not very accurate. That's the one problem. You need to pair this with something more accurate, because it just kind of sprays all over the place. So I'll mention the Monkey Ace. This is meant to be a tier 5 video, but the Spectre upgrade for the Monkey Ace is almost worthy of a tier 5 title in itself compared to some of the other ones. It's $18,000, which is really cheap. You can often save up for this before round 63, and it's effective far after round 63. Only problem is, similar to the aircraft carrier, it lacks accuracy, but although if you place it well, that you can eliminate this as a factor. Everything else on the Ace is kind of too situational or not cost effective enough to use, but this tier 4 upgrade is definitely like tier 5 worthy, so it is well worth mentioning. So the Heli Pilot, probably I would say the best tier 5 in the game currently in terms of just beating Chimps difficulty. So it's purely at the bottom path here, the Comanche Commander. So the Comanche Defense is not a good upgrade. Unfortunately, it is a stepping stone in order to get the tier 5. The Comanches do not spawn frequently enough to really be much use. The cooldown is too long even once they do spawn, but they do great damage. So once you get this Comanche Commander and you can force them to come out permanently, this is incredible. They are way more powerful than the actual main heli. You can just sit the main heli out on the side and not care about it, and these three will just pursue along. Like, you can't change them off pursuit. They will just pursue along and destroy everything. Although it's worth mentioning, the main Comanche commander is the only one that has Mob Shove out of the group, so it will hold back everything, and the other ones will do all the damage. This works quite well on pursuit actually, because the Comanches that fly around next to it, they wipe out ceramics real quickly. So the main Comanche doesn't suffer from Mob Shove's usual issue, or the Hellion General's usual issue, where once the Mob that it's trying to pursue breaks open, it will break off and start following the children and not like stun the other Mobs behind it. This one doesn't really have that problem because the Comanches that follow it around wipe out ceramics so quickly. This is a super expensive upgrade, so like stepping stone here of 10k, that's a really bad stepping stone. You're spending 10k, not really getting much, and then you have to spend like another 35k, and in Chimps mode this is increased by 8%, so you're spending a lot. But I pretty much find that by the time you buy this upgrade, as long as you get it like with lead popping before DDTs come, you've won the game. Like this can take out the bad on its own, and all the rounds up until then, everything else you've got should be enough to help you get through and reach that bad. So I pretty much find that once you get this down, you have won the game. It's hard to save for, but if you can save up for something that'll win you the game, then it's well worth it. So looking at magic, so the magic tree is really great. These are all really great towers, and so we'll start with the Wizard Monkey. So the Archmage here, there was actually a poll on Reddit recently, and this is the most popular upgrade in the game. Apparently, I don't think it's the best. I think the Comanche Commander is the best in my opinion, but this is the most popular, and so for this one you want to go 502, mainly because of the intense magic. This adds Pierce to the super powerful attack that the tier 5 has, and the monkey sense is only $300, so you may as well get it. All it does is add camera detection, but that little bit of extra camera detection, unless you're under a village anyway, it helps. This is more expensive than like Icicle Impale or many of those other upgrades, but it's still well worth the cost. So if you're in a position where you can save a bit extra, this one's nice. It's really nice. Only problem is it doesn't stun like the Icicle Impale does. That's why I often prefer to go Icicle Impale. But what it does have is much more range. It has much more considerable range. It has a homing attack. It doesn't arc very much, so you kind of miss a lot in that, but the actual power of that attack is massive, so it kind of does really well. One of my favorite spots for it is actually on the firing range track, and I don't think I've done a chimps video on that track, even though I've passed the black border, so I might do that at some point. But my favorite spot is when you sell the tower in the middle of firing range, you place him there, and your Archmage will kind of go nuts, and just and those tracks that kind of wind around a few times, it'll just go woo, and just circle around and destroy them. It is a really satisfying tower to watch. That's the main thing. I mean, it's a great, powerful tower, but the reason it's so popular, I think, is because it is just so satisfying to watch. Unfortunately, also it's worth mentioning as well, when you get this tier 5 upgrade, it gives you the tier 3 Dragon's Breath and the tier 3 Shimmer on this upgrade. You don't get the tier 2s or the tier 1s, so that's why you need to cross path with Intense and Monkey Sense. But you do get Shimmer, and what that means is this tower will constantly set off like a shimmer, which removes camo from anything in radius, and it's a really big radius, so... But it's the radius of the shimmer, not the radius of the wizard monkey, so don't get that confused. But the shimmer itself is still a huge radius, so yeah, you're pretty much eliminating camo as a factor. It's still worth getting the monkey sense, I think, because the shimmer is not just it's not just like a dust that's constantly in the air. It has to attack, and it goes off. It goes off pretty fast, but slow enough that a DDT can kind of jump in a bit and maybe get past, so it's worth spending the extra 300. The Supermonkey, you're not going to get a tier 5 Supermonkey in a chimps game until free play. Except for, I mean, maybe the anti-balloon. That's kind of cheap, but 90k is still not cheap. I know this, I mean, I mentioned before, this is meant to be a tier 5 recommendations, but similar to the Spectre, the tier 4s on this tower are worthy of being called tier 5s, honestly. And I would say like these are all maybe tier 6s and 7s. But yeah, the Robo and Dark Knight are awesome stepping stones towards awesome upgrades, Tech Terror and Dark Champion. Dark Champion's probably too expensive for you most of the time, but it is possible to get in chimps. I've done it. I've beat a few maps that way. It's just such a stepping stone that you probably don't want to do that most of the time. But the Tech Terror is quite easy to get, and it has huge range. Only problem, it doesn't stun. That's why I generally prefer to go Icicle Impale or like Comanche, but it is still a super powerful upgrade. So these are worth mentioning, even though they are not actually tier 5s. So the Ninja Monkey. So this is actually how I passed Black Border on Ouch Chimps, and I haven't got a video on that, but Jar Jar Josh has a similar video, and I would recommend checking it out because it's great. That was unfortunately before the 3.0 update, which changed the rounds a bit, so it will probably not work at the start at least. But he also has a video up changing how he did the start, and I think he might have redone it with the Ninja Strat again. I'm not sure. I haven't checked that recently, but definitely go check him out. And yeah, so this is the Grandmaster Ninja. It's a great tower. It's a really great tower. So it's not incredibly cost effective for $35,000. But what happens is it can be buffed. Metricked. But yeah, so it shoots out these 8. Is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is 8. So it fires out the 8 Shuriken, and I mean, if you're in chimps, generally you're going to have Seeking Shuriken. The thing is, Ninja's a great starting tower. You will very frequently, I mean, unless you're messing around, you're going to start with like a Ninja almost straight away. Like you usually transition from Dark Monkey start to a Ninja. And like Dark Monkey's around 1, then you're saving up for a Ninja. And that Ninja's going to be your main defense until you start saving up for something big. But in this case, you could actually just keep the Ninja and upgrade that Ninja to something big. If you have the correct amount of space. So it all comes down to space. If you have your Ninja placed in a spot early on where there's not much land around it, then you can't really do this. But if you have a lot of space around it, like for example, you are in the middle of 4 circles, I actually did a video on this too, then you can actually add ninjas all around it with the Shinobi Tactics upgrade, and these will all buff your Grandmaster to ridiculous attack speeds. The Grand Saboteur and the Master Bomber are also very formidable and quite cost-effective upgrades, but for what they do and the specific way they work, you're not going to really use them in chimps either. So yeah, they're not really for this sort of thing. So the Alchemist, this has one thing worth mentioning. Okay, so you're going to be using Alchemist. Let's mention that. Definitely, you're always going to be using Alchemist in chimps unless you're just messing around trying to do something more difficult. But the only tier 5 worth using in chimps is the Balloon Master Alchemist. And the only problem here, so there is an issue where the Balloon Master Alchemist, I mean, it can convert anything it hits into a red balloon, including a Zomj. It can't hit bads, but anything Zomj or below, it can just hit it, boom, it's now a red balloon. That's super powerful, right? And for what it does, $40,000, it's actually pretty cheap. It's a very cheap upgrade. So this isn't a problem currently, but it actually doesn't give you the cash from the balloons it converts. It literally converts them. It's not supposed to pop them and give you cash. And that's probably going to be, currently it actually does give you the cash, but that's probably going to be fixed. And sorry about that. But as of 3.0 at least, not sure about the future, but as of 3.0 you can currently use this and it will give you cash from the stuff it converts. In the future, if you're watching this and I'm in the past, then maybe that won't be the case for you. So the final magic monkey, the Druid, and I have a video up on Town Center where I use the Superstorm, and I mean, I will admit, getting that won the game for me, because nothing could get past me. I was just permanently stalling. But it's an extremely expensive upgrade at $90,000 to actually get in chimps mode, and then it actually doesn't do much damage. It literally just stalls around forever. And because of that, even though I have one with it, I would never recommend that. Don't do it. The Avatar of Wrath, on the other hand, this is a crazy good upgrade, and it's upgraded from a tower that's actually really good to start. In fact, most chimps start with Dark Monkeys, but it is possible to start with a Druid. You can beat games in chimps without using any Dark Monkeys at all, and Druid is one of the starts that you can do that with. The other, of course, is Ninja. And there's probably some other ones, but the main ones are Druid, Ninja, and Dark Monkey. So, the Avatar of Wrath, it can be buffed by up to 5 other Populus Druids, and they will all increase its attack speed and its pierce. But this main one itself will actually... it actually gets more and more powerful the more balloons are on screen. So it scales. And by the time you get like a bad spawning, it has a crazy damage buff, and for $45,000 it will definitely do you some good work. You don't want to go for this unless you can fit like at least 4 other Populus Druids around it, in my opinion. You don't have to go for the max of 5 others, but it's not really any fun unless you do. So you definitely want to. Okay, so looking at support, well, I mean, all of the banana farms are great to use in chimps, of course. In fact, I think that if you can get down all of the tier 5 banana farms in one game of chimps, that you can probably just beat anything. So definitely do that. Aside from the banana farms, though, I mean, you want to use the Spike Factory. This permaspike, it lays down it fires slowly, but it lays down these massive spikes that do massive damage. And if you have like a single 2/0/0 Alchemist next to it, you can basically not care about DDTs anymore. They will run straight past you and then just immediately vanish on your permaspike. You want to go for the 0.25 permaspike, but you can do the 2.05 permaspike if you don't want to bother buffing it with an Alchemist. But for the amount of DPS you gain from faster production, I would always go faster production. It's worth spending a little bit extra to just get an acidic mixture dip Alchemist next to it. Now this upgrade was nerfed a lot in 2.0, but it's still a really, really powerful upgrade. It's still well worth using. In fact, it is so powerful some people consider it cheating. I disagree because of the nerf to it. I think it is quite balanced now. I do still think it's OP, but I think it's balanced enough that it's just an OP tower that's fun, and it has weaknesses still. So go ahead and use it. It's still a fun tower, and you can do a lot with it. And I would say that's pretty much it. You could arguably use primary expertise, but I wouldn't recommend it. So the one case you would use primary expertise is what you can do in Chimps, is you can actually make use of the free upgrades from the primary mentoring and primary expertise. And I mean, you could also have a monkey city to generate a bunch of free dart monkeys, and you can just like you can place down all these dart monkeys, upgrade them to tier 2 for free, or you could have like a bunch of bomb shooters under this with their tier 2 upgrades for free. You can it's not a great, I mean, it doesn't sound like a great strategy, but the amount of money you can save by spamming like a bunch of tier 3 towers, for example, is quite considerable. So if you can get this primary expertise up really quickly, then there's a lot of fun strats you can do with it. But in general, I would not recommend this. It's worth mentioning, because you can kind of obliterate some easy maps by spamming tier 3 towers. But aside from that, not really. And so that's my general thoughts on, I mean, tier 5 towers to use in Chimps, and a couple tier 4s that are worth mentioning as well. And I guess while we're here, I may as well talk about heroes. Okay. So by now, you've probably realized that Gwendolyn is the most popular hero, and that is because she deals with lead early on. She can actually deal with camo early on because of her cocktail of fire. If you're really micro into the micro, but you don't really want to be doing that. But she also gets some buffs which increase like the pierce and the damage of towers around her. And this, by the time you get to late game, pretty much becomes permanently active as long as she keeps on attacking. If she's not attacking, like you have ranged towers taking out everything, then it's not up as often, but it's still great. And for that reason, you're pretty much going to be using Gwendolyn in most of your Chimps games, on most of the harder maps at least. Oban is also pretty high tier for similar reasons. Oban can apply a pierce boost to all of your magic monkeys. So if you're going for like a druid strategy or a ninja strategy, Oban can be good. Depending on the map you do, Oban also kind of trumps Gwen sometimes. I think Cornfield, for example. I believe Oban is the best hero for Cornfield, or depending on how you play your Cornfield, but I've had the most luck with Oban. Oban is a better starting tower than Gwendolyn, mainly because Oban is so cheap. Oban can just kind of do things a bit earlier, but Gwendolyn has a higher power level, like at the higher stages. So if you're struggling early game, then Oban's good to go for. If you're really struggling early game, you probably want Quincy, but but yeah, I wouldn't use Quincy too much in Chimps mode. Definitely doable, but Oban and Gwendolyn can do most things that Quincy can do, and also apply like a bigger bonus at their higher levels. Now, the next one is Churchill, and I think Churchill's probably the second best hero to use in Chimps next to Gwendolyn. And the difference here is Churchill doesn't give any sort of like buffs like Gwendolyn does or like Oban does, but what Churchill does do is he does a lot of damage. And if you can get him down earlier, then he can get much stronger, much quicker. So it really depends. Like, yeah, if you're struggling more early game, then Churchill will be great for taking out some of the early mobs and stuff. But if you're struggling more late game, then you probably want to get Gwendolyn for those buffs. But also, if your defense is really spread out, then Gwendolyn's buff's not going to hit many of them. So at that point, it might be worth considering going back to Churchill. And those are the main heroes that you're going to be using in Chimps, really, those three. Because Benjamin will just lose you money in Chimps. It is possible to win Chimps with him. It's actually even possible to win the high finance Chimps with him, but it's a bit tricky. So don't really do that unless you're doing it for a bit of an extended challenge, like self-inflicted harm. But yeah. Anyway, that's, I guess, my general look at cost effectiveness going into Chimps and just doing stuff. I've mostly cleared the Chimps walkthroughs that I've done now, so you've probably seen me do a lot of this and a lot of other weird shenanigans as well. But yeah, anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'll see you around.